Hi there, welcome to a brief reveal demonstration. My name is Chris Weller. This is just to go over some 3D HR processing in Reveal to demonstrate its abilities and also obviously demonstrate my abilities in case you have any 3D processing requirements, etc. So this is actually a Windows machine that's running WSL2. Which essentially is a Linux subsystem which runs on Windows, therefore doesn't require the need for dual booting, which is obviously quite handy for both normal operations of survey. Switching to seismic is quite useful. So yeah, if I look at some data, so I've just got some 3D data from somewhere in the Gulf of Mexico. Around 50 odd sequences I've got loaded, and just go through. So I've got some raw examples. We can just look at them. So basically I've taken these through to make a 3D cube post-processed. And then, so on the initial step, I've now merged it, I've checked it, and I've created a Denoise cube. So obviously this is not regularized or binned. This is just the Denoise thrown in, and it's not corrected for offset. It's not, so yeah, this is just an example. So obviously this is quite a no noise, no denoise. But it's relatively nice data, and it does match up quite well. And at this stage we can also make a time slice really quite easily, and then we've got two areas, a relief well and the main well for the site survey. So I've gone through the steps, and obviously this is not exhaustive, there could be more. But basically, for denoise, I've done a just normal shot denoise and a channel denoise. So let me just show. So for normal denoise, I've just applied some sort of sound shot FX swells, which is just a shot domain. And then I've also done a similar process on channels, which I always find good, just a selection of FX swells, and the results are pretty good. So this is the combined result. So again, in Reveal, it's quite nice. You kind of get to display with a difference straight away. So this is. Let's change the order. Doesn't matter. So that's after, and this is before, then the difference. So we've just gone for just the ringing for probably from the gun, and obviously a lot of swell noise at the bottom. So just tune it down slightly. But yeah, so I've done that at this first, and then I've moved on to a debubble. So obviously in this day on the near two channels, it's quite obvious that there's a bit of bubble, and I've tried to remove as much as I can. So I've just extracted a wavelet, picking the water bottom, flattening it, and then basically then designed a bubble operator just with a decon. And then applied that. So if you just look at the stacks, and go to Denoise stacks, and again I can just quite quickly just look at the SRME effect. So again, it's worked pretty well. So it could be slightly harsher, but again, it's just just shows that it just gets rid of that, and obviously it's more prevalent on the near offsets, on the near cables, but for this one we've only got 2 cables and 2 guns, but you know, the near offsets, gun 1 and cable 1, it is a little bit more obvious. So then once I've done that, I've gone on to deghosting, and I've done both a source and receiver deghosting. Another interesting, useful thing in Reveal is you can actually probe and actually look at results. So some of these data I've already deleted because it's obviously quite a lot of data, but in this instance the denoise runs into deghosting, and I've done a shot and a receiver deghost. I did just do another FX as well. There's a little bit of a noise that was been brought in, but overall if you look at the before deghost, which is this step here, and then the after of both the shot and source receiver, I mean they're very similar, 3 and 2.5 meters, but the side lobes are removed quite well. And then what you can also do, you can check the frequency content, but it does a nice job, removes the constructive, and the water bottom is a nice peak. Well, this is just a trough, but there's a nice vent. And then if we just look at the stacks for okay, and just change the gain. And it's done a pretty decent job of removing that's that on this particular this cable combination. Well, this one's also on cable 1, so sometimes I've kept them separate or split them just depending on the deghosting runs as one complete sequence, so it's quite easy. And then there's the zero phasing. So the zero phasing is just taking that wavelet and just basically making it zero phase, so there's nothing particularly unique in that one. And then obviously for the being 3D data, I run 3D SRME. So for the 3D SRME, there's an error extrapolation which I've done on each offset, on each combination. I've created common offset gathers and offset splits. So we've got 48 fold, so we've got 48 output splits, off bins in this, and then I've run infill, basically just a Fourier transform, Fourier regularized to infill the offsets, so we have roughly full fold. So on the off bin you have your partial move out of your data. So I can just change this to be 3D stack, and then when you basically go to an area, it's now partial move out corrected, so it actually now looks more sensible. Again, I can switch to time, and you're looking at sensible data. It still has a few gaps, so obviously this is just one offset in division. This is actually the near offset, so this is extrapolated. But essentially, and then running 3 SRME, so I've just done a relatively small aperture just for runtime, but essentially just set it up, keep the apertures quite low, but the results are quite good. So if I just have, so I've done them in, I've done a 3D first and a 2D after. So basically I've double adaptation. One with the 3D first. So this is the raw. So the 3D does quite well on the primaries, but again it is very shallow. But as you see down in the deeper section here, we're getting these multiples, which the SRME obviously does better at, especially down here. And then the 2D on top is essentially just going for the first bounce and probably the secondary and the third, as you can see, just to kind of tally that up. It obviously fails on the edges where there's no data, but so that's relatively normal. So yeah, that worked quite well, and so I can just compare the 3D stack to zero phase 3D stack. So obviously it's not exactly perfect in terms of the comparison, but it looks pretty decent. So this is again just the near traces. Well, the near trace for each cable, which is 1 in 97, and then it's just been brought through, and you can see it's worked quite well. So you can see obviously the multiples down the bottom on the deeper section. So once I've done that, I basically then moved on to running the same interp again. So I've just run the same jobs as I ran for the SRME to create the offsets. There's just obviously no near trace extrapolation, and now for my near trace, which is now 25 meters, I still have gaps, but these are the gaps between the areas, so they're actually more sensible. And then once I'm happy with my interp, I run just a pre-stack Kirchhoff, and that is just using just tested looking at different apertures. But again, I haven't gone too massive, just for runtime. 250 and 500. It's only 1.2 seconds, or 1.5. And then I've just also selected a range, so I've got a data set, the same data I've just looked at. I've only done it for a specific area, I've only done it for this, just basically no point in doing the whole area. So I've just done this subsection of the volume, just for runtime, and then essentially my then you read the data sets, the different off bins, and then you can create your migration volume. So you can make that a big screen, and then I can just move through. This image looks quite nicely considering. I'm going to quickly just change. So as you can see, there is a little bit of multiple left. The first bounce is in some of the areas where the SRME hasn't got data. But what I've done is then I've run just some decon post migration, but on offsets, just because it needed. It just needed some extra removal, which I didn't do my pre-migration, and so that's that one. And again, with this, you can quickly just find out what it's done. So then I've just done it on offset, so I've just read the off-bin data, creating the from the migration, and I've just done decon on top. I also did with these I picked veils again. I had some initial ones, but they weren't particularly good. So again, I've just quickly gone through and picked them on the regular interval that I've got, and it actually looks pretty good. So I've gone through and just tried to quickly pick a slightly better one than I already had, which is always good. And then I've restacked it. So for the final stack flow, this is taking the decon data, and then PSTM, PSTMC. This will be the decon comparison. But it's also, I've done it relatively high just to kind of remove some of the original bubble that was left, but overall it does quite well. So, and then the final step was just do a bit of just some denoise. So again, 3D. So I've done some FX decon, FXY decon, so in null cross time, and then I've just done some gate decons post using that data. So if we just do a comparison of that, it's that one and that one. And then I've just applied Q and a few other bits and bobs, basically because obviously I've done deghosting just to kind of balance the spectrum. And there you go. So I can just take the gain down. I'm going to go to the center, and then I can just so we can just compare. So again, the final, I've applied a Q of 100 just to kind of boost it, but it's going to change it to just more normal. So it does an okay job of trying to balance it out. And then as you go down, it's a bit more reasonable. So again, it's quite a nice flat spectrum. And there's that little remnant there, still there, but it does, the decompose stack and there's the FXY treats it as noise, removes it quite effectively. But overall, the imaging is quite good. So if we now change it to be in time, we can get rid of that. It can be okay. And then we'll go navigate, change the gain, and then we can so that's kind of like the last. Yeah, so it works quite well. So yeah, so obviously it's not an exhaustive list of flows. I should have done direct arrival removal on the shots right in the beginning, just because obviously the shallowness and affecting the outer or further offsets. But yeah, it wasn't too much of a hindrance. And if there is radon, but obviously for the shallowness, it doesn't really work that well. So yeah, but yeah, essentially, yeah, if you have any 3D work or want some assistance, then obviously there's a whole point of this, just to kind of show it out there that it can be done remotely, again with technology. And this is just on a Windows laptop with Linux running on the subsystem. It's quite easy to do. So by all means, if you need anything, please give me a message, or my details are obviously on the email or on LinkedIn. cweller1405@gmail.com. Pretty much always available, but yeah. Okay, well, I'll leave you to the rest of your day, and I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you. Bye bye.